Good afternoon, morning, evening, nighttime, early morning, afternoon, whichever it is that when you're watching this. It is being recorded February 1st, 2025. My name is Angela K. Durden. This is The Constrained View. You can find it on Substack and also on my YouTube channel, Angela Durden. We've got an interesting subject today. Kristi Noem has just been confirmed as the head of the Department of Homeland Security, DHS. And my guest today is Jedwin Smith. He is, let me show you real quick. Uh, let's show you. This is Jedwin Smith's website. Let's put it on there, add to stage. There we go. And he's a military historian, and full transparency, I've known him for many years. I'm also his publisher of two different books of his, though he does have others. You can go to his site, jedwinsmith.com, to find out all about him, contact him, and his books are linked to a purchase portal, which is Amazon, so you can get his books there. Um, Jedwin is knew a guy by the name of Philip Haney, and Philip wrote a book called "See Something, Say Nothing." I think it's backwards. Maybe it's backwards. I don't know. "See Something, Say Nothing," and he was a founding member of the Department of Homeland Security. So let's get Jedwin to join us now. Jedwin, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Um, so what do you know about Philip Haney?
Uh, Almost 5 years ago to the day, he was murdered uh, south of Sacramento, uh,
Sacramento, California?
Sacramento, California. The police there initially uh, labeled it as suicide. Uh, any of us who know Philip know that's preposterous.
Yeah, it wasn't suicide.
Uh, they, the police quickly, the sheriff's department quickly uh, said no, we take that back. It's not suicide. It's a murder. And since that day, everything's been shut off. There's been no communication from the police department. Uh, no information about an investigation. Uh, it's it's typical government, you know. We're just going to be silent about it, and hopefully it just goes away. But any of us who know Philip Haney, it's his memory and what he stood for uh,
Right.
uh, it's not going to go away.
No. Um, if you go to a browser, I went to Chrome, Google browser, uh, and you type in Philip Haney, look at this long list. Who killed whistleblower Philip Haney? 1 year later, no word on the probe. Let me get to that. No word on the probe. Um, of DHS officer Philip Haney's death, 2021, slain DHS whistleblower Philip Haney not resting in peace, 2020. Here's what Philip Haney would think about Horowitz's FBI failure report, 2020. DHS whistleblower Philip Haney honored in a House speech. Now, this one had a note on it. It said this congressman, when you read the story, had a mutual pact with Philip Haney to find the truth if either were said to have committed suicide. DHS whistleblower Philip Haney shot dead. Sheriff releases report on DHS whistleblower Phil Haney's death. Establishment media's cover up of Phil Haney's mysterious death. DHS whistleblower Haney to co host Hannity Show. coroner, we have not ruled DHS whistleblower's death a suicide, because if they did rule it that, then the other fellow would have to say, no, it wasn't a suicide. So they came out with something else to try to shut the investigation down. And there's a whole lot more on this when you read it.
Wow.
And I remember you and I, when did we have lunch with Philip? We had lunch with Philip about, it was about 2 years before his death, wasn't it?
Correct. Yes. Uh, he is, as a matter of fact, uh, he gave us a gift. Uh, Philip knew Israel inside and out, and this innocuous looking stone
Hold
was
it up a
taken.
little bit and hold it up closer to your camera so we can see it. Yes,
All right.
okay. Thank you.
This is came from the stream bed that little David used to kill Goliath. This is exactly one of the stones.
You mean a stone typical of what David
Typical
would
of,
use?
yes, right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Not the actual stone,
No,
but
it
no.
not the actual stone. Well,
Uh,
I remember we went to a little restaurant in downtown Decatur, Georgia, because I'm in Decatur, Georgia. Jedwin is up further north in Lawrenceville,
yes.
Georgia, and we went to this little restaurant. It had an upstairs thing. I forget the name of it, and it frankly doesn't matter what the name of it is. But it was where we could talk. There was only a small group over in the corner, and then the rest of the place was upstairs. It was just us. And do you remember that conversation? He was telling us about the when the okay, Philip was a founder of the Department of Homeland Security. This is very, very clear. And
Yes.
all of those bona fides are laid out in his book, which is See Something, Say Nothing, which I think is still available on Amazon, but frankly, I can't say for positive sure, because it kind of sort of, comes and goes. But I'm sure you could find a used copy somewhere if you wanted it, the listeners. But at this at this luncheon, this lunch that we were having, he was telling the story about how he was in Washington doing something, which he was flying in and out of it all the time, and he was with a buddy who was taking him to the airport, but the airport was shut down because of snow. And the buddy said, "Well, why don't you come with me to a dinner I'm going to tonight?" And he said, "Okay." Well, the dinner was hosted by Sean Hannity. And he walked in this room and he could see all these people, that there is no way he would ever have been able to meet these people. He started naming names. I don't remember who they are, but he said there's some he wouldn't even mention their names. But they were all having this dinner and they were all worried about Obama, what he was going to do to the government and all this sort of thing. And then do you remember he stood up and he quoted something at the Hannity dinner? Nobody knew him. They were all just giving him, the side eye, like, "Who are you?" And at one point, he decided, you know what? I'm gonna stand up and I'm gonna say something. And then right there in that restaurant with us, he stood up and he quoted what he quoted to the Sean Hannity crowd. And I'm gonna read it because he put it in his book. Okay,
All right.
again, he says, "Whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence, indeed, will dictate that government long established should not be changed for light and transient causes, and accordingly all experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable, than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. In Venatus Veritas, in relentless pursuit of the truth.
Yep.
And then he sat down at the Hannity dinner, and then he proceeded to sit down at our lunch after he said it too. But do you remember that back over in the corner there was a group of young people having a nice lunch? They all stopped dead and listened to him. Do you remember that?
Yes.
They were, I don't think they'd ever heard words like that before,
No.
ever. And it seems to me that Philip Haney was spreading seeds of what the Constitution was all about and why the Republic was formed.
Right.
And I know you saw a lot of that firsthand, didn't you?
Yes, I did. It's Philip, without a doubt, is one of the most brilliant people I ever came across. Um, I joked with him. I says, first time I saw you, I thought it was Elmer Fudd. Here's this unassuming guy
I
that
know.
just walks up to me and says, "Hi, I'm
See,
Philip."
there's his
Yes,
picture. He
right.
doesn't look like a go get 'em tough guy,
No,
does he?
right. He's definitely not John Wick. All
No,
right.
no, he's
Uh,
not.
but he walked up and said, "Hi, I'm Philip Haney, and you are." And I reluctantly, shook his hand. I thought, "Oh God, here's another one of these tambourine pounders who walks around and speaks about Jesus every moment of the day." And
Yeah.
but anyway, that night I remember him saying, he says, "Well, June, my wife, she says, yeah, Jedwin's here to write a book about Israel." And Philip said, "Well, that's interesting. Well, maybe we can get together tonight and I can feed you in on a few things." And
Hey,
I
hey,
said, "Oh, okay."
what year was that? I forget.
That's 2017. It was April 22nd, as a matter of fact, in Israel. And we were in uh, Tel Aviv. We were in Tel Aviv,
Hmm.
and after a 20-hour flight, just my head was gone. There was no coffee. It was Shabbat. We had to drink Nescafe, and
Nescafe. Oh my
right,
God. For a coffee
and
lover, that was killing you.
all right. So I was not in a very friendly mood. Uh,
Yeah.
uh, but anyway, I met him that night, and it was a group of people, and we're just sitting there. They were drinking, and I was having real coffee now. And somebody asked I was a war correspondent for a while, and they said, where was I? What I, had covered. And I said, Beirut, Lebanon, and then the Horn of Africa. And Philip,
The Eritrean
yeah, Ethiopia, Civil War,
yeah. Hmm.
20 years long, the longest war in Africa at the time. And Philip just piped up and he says, "Where at in Africa?" And I said, in Eritrea." He said, "Did you ever get to a place called Denden?" And I about fell out of the chair because Denden, I had linked up with uh, Eritrean battalion, and our battle area was a mountain called Denden, and we were surrounded by the entire Third Ethiopian Army and a reinforced company of Soviet Spetsnaz.
So
Yeah.
when uh Philip said din din and you were like, "What?" Then he understood what was going on there, didn't he?
Yeah, yeah, he knew exactly, and I mean, I was stunned because that was I was at Den Den in 1980 86, and here it's almost 30 years later, and I'd never ever heard anybody talk about Den Den. You know, just another innocuous place in a world of war.
Right.
And from that moment on, he had my attention. You know,
And I know y'all became fast friends.
oh God,
I mean,
yes.
not just fast friends as in tight, but I mean fast.
Oh,
Y'all were two of a kind
it
in
was
how you thought.
instantaneous. Yeah,
Yes. Um, so then after y'all came after you finished your that's where you wrote your book I Am Israel,
right,
Lions and Lambs of the Land. You were doing all
right,
those interviews, which is a whole nother
right,
story,
right.
uh, covered in the book, so people can get it. It's linked on your site. um, but then you came back to the US, and after that, how did you two stay in touch, and what did you learn about what his life was like uh, after he became a persona non grata with the DHS?
Oh yeah, it's the Obama administration. Uh, Obama was in love with the Muslim Brotherhood.
Oh my
He
God! Hang on one second. Hang on. Hang on. I am going to show you. Did you hear what happened just this week with Tulsi Gabbard?
uh,
You must
where
not have, because if you'd have heard this, let me show you. I'm gonna pull up uh, present a share screen. I'm not going to show you the video, um, but let's see. Tulsi, there it is. Um, she was asked a question that's to the congressman, the Democrat congressman asking it seemed innocuous. But it was very clear from the look on her face when she heard that question, she knew that that man did not have a clue about the history of Obama and the
right,
Muslim Brotherhood.
surprise, surprise, huh?
She perceived this was what was called a scoop. Now, everybody might have known it kind of, sort of,
Mm,
but the vast majority of people as time has gone on completely forgot about it. She proceeded in this hearing to lay out how, because of Obama, the Islamists were beginning to take over the world, and that was their
right.
plan, and he was supporting them.
Yes.
This is what Philip Haney was very unhappy about and found out, and that's when they came after him hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Janet Napolitano. She the one of the people who allegedly planned out the Boston Marathon bombing.
Uh huh.
Trying to think of his name here. Anyway, she was deporting this individual uh, for security reasons. She did that, and 3 days later, Haney came out and said, "Wait a minute, this guy was linked to the. I've linked him to the Boston Marathon bombing." And boy, I mean, Napolitano was head of Homeland Security. I mean, the whole administration just had a heart attack, and they came down hard on Philip. But he
Yes.
had irrefutable evidence, and
Well, that was his job, wasn't he? Uh, didn't he look for the spread of disease via bugs around the world, and
right,
he was able to track all of that, and that's how he got invited to become the foundational for the Department of Homeland Security when it first began, because he knew
right,
how to track things.
Right.
And
He was
here, the Boston Marathon bombing happened.
right.
3 days later, his boss is sending out the very guy that he'd done track down and said he was the one
Right.
responsible.
He's the one. And when I that same night, well, when one of the first things that just sunk into my head when I met Philip, I said, "Well, I know you were in Homeland Security, but what did you do before that?" And he goes, "I was an entomologist." I said, "What?" He says, "Yeah."
Yeah,
He says,
what?
"I I studied the good bugs that destroyed the bad bugs," and he said, "I just have my brain is wired in such a way that I just can connect the dots between one event and what really happened."
Right.
And he said that was my job at Homeland Security. Uh, you know, he went in at the Fort Hood shooting in uh, 29 209. Uh,
2009?
yeah, Major Hassan.
Yeah.
Uh, Philip had already linked him to the Muslim Brotherhood. He said, "This guy, he's an army major, but this guy is a loose wire." It just and the Homeland Security, uh, you know, they, they just put it down. Because the guy was a Muslim. Back in the day, by God, don't say anything bad about the Muslim. If you did, you were a racist. I remember at the newspaper where I worked, the Atlanta Journal Constitution. After 9/11, they uh, made it mandatory that uh, we all take a class on, uh, Islam. And
Wait. Take a class on Islam. What does that
yeah,
mean? Take a class on
we're all going
Islam.
to
What
go
does that
get in a.
mean?
We all were supposed to get on a bus and we're going to go to a mosque. And I said, you had to sign up for it to get a certain time and seat. I remember saying, "Hey, the hell with that. Once we have a mandatory class on Christianity, I'll sign up for that." But I said, Muslims have tried to kill me in 2 different countries, 3 different countries. I said, I'll
Well,
pass.
repeat
Well,
that again. Who tried to sign? Who had these classes?
the newspaper. That's
Which newspaper?
Atlanta Journal Constitution.
That rag.
Yeah. Do you
Oh my God. What?
Anyway, it's you had 9/11, then you had Fort Hood, and then you had the Boston Marathon, and then you had the San Bernardino massacre on Christmas in 2015. I mean, you had all these series of uh, Muslim uh, inspired events in which people were killed. I mean, San Bernardino, husband and wife jihadists
Yeah.
uh, who, uh, Philip had said, "Hey, these people are linked to the Muslim Brotherhood, jihadis," and the government did nothing about it. And then on Christmas Day, they walked in with automatic weapons and killed 14 and wounded 21. But
Well,
you know,
go ahead. I'm
it
sorry.
just these type of things happen, and Philip was just very, very good at connecting the dots.
And
And
documenting.
oh God, yeah, he had
Documenting.
on a chain around his neck. He had all he had all the files. He had everything uh, on a what a what do you call those?
Dongle.
Uh, you know,
USB. A USB drive. A
yeah,
USB.
yeah, right. And that was my major question when I found out he'd been murdered: is did the police find that USB device on a chain around his neck. No one would answer that. But it on that on that device was irrefutable evidence that the government had just overlooked, you know, overlooked all the hard evidence that Philip had worked to get to link up these Islamists, these terrorists. But back in the day, I mean, people forget, but back in that day, from that time at 9/11 till even up to today, you kind of have to pussyfoot around, saying somebody's a terrorist or somebody's an Islamist and all that.
Well,
You're relegated as a
well,
racist.
well, yeah, but that's coming to an end. Uh,
Yes,
Kristi Noem was just she's now the uh, Department of Homeland Security head,
right.
and
She's
she sure
sharp.
is. She's sharp as a tack.
Right,
She's sharper than a tack. She's sharper than a bed full of nails.
right,
And I think that they don't understand just how much she understands that
right,
we can't just be pussyfooting around. As soon as she was confirmed, the first thing she does, she comes out with some hard stuff. This is how it's going to be, and then she proceeds to go on a immigration crackdown right along, and she was in the thick of it.
right,
So if anybody who nominated said she would fit this job and thought she was going to be a pushover, they gonna be in for a big surprise.
right.
And that's just the way it is. Let me.
I want her on my flank, and
Oh, yes, indeed, indeed.
definitely.
Let me show you. Let me share with you and the uh, people watching, the audience. Um, I want to show you this particular site. We're going to add it to the stage. You get YouTube, I'm sure. And so there's a guy by the name of Stephen Gardner, and I've put his site up here. If you go to his YouTube channel, Stephen Gardner, it's subtitled Taming Wall Street. He's a finance guy sort of thing, but he pays attention to what that's going on in the world and how it affects all these things and who's involved in it. And he's got a ton of connections. And I he does 20 to 40-minute segments once or twice a day. I mean, this is how much this guy is on top of watching. So I'm going to recommend that if people are wanting to catch up, they just go to his YouTube channel, and he has all these different things at the bottom where you can catch up on White House goings on, Democrat meltdowns, Rhino meltdowns, Rhino meltdowns.
Right.
So just keep an eye on that, and you'll be able to do it. It's absolutely worth going and watching his stuff. Uh, so that was that. Let's see. Let me remind everybody of your website again. Let me show this. Share it. We'll put it up to the stage. Uh, Jedwin Smith. Let me kind of see if I can scroll through this. Can you see it scrolling?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Uh, so this is his book, I Am Israel, Lions and Lambs of the Land. You'll notice that the foreword was written by Philip Haney,
Yes.
and damn fine job he did of it too. And of
Great job.
course,
Yes.
just go around and you know click on the other links there, and you'll be able to see some of your other books. Uh, Jedwin, have you ever heard of Hillsdale College?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
and
Yes.
you've heard of Imprimus? Imprimus?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Uh, Imprimus is a free publication that you can get sent. Anybody can get sent to them, and it is much history about the Constitution of the United States, about the founders, about the things that we're going through now. Actually, are not new.
No, by no
They've
means.
just no, they're by no means new, but they are. They did get to a level of being out of control, the Marxist and the globalist. Now, the Marxists cover everybody from Putin, Russia, the CCP, any flat out dictator, I don't care what country or anything that he's in, rhinos, Democrats, and social justice warrior types like Black Lives Matter, trans activism, and that sort of thing. All of these people are Marxists. They believe that, oh yeah, climate activists, all of that. Every single one of those, it does not matter which one you name, sole thing that they want to do is destroy the foundations of civilization. And
Right.
they all got a good reason for it, and they all try to talk you into it. Well, in the mid 60s came a big push, very coordinated push from Russia into the elite universities, the Ivy Leagues, and then it moved out where they
Uh,
sent their defectors, and the defectors then began to radicalize. They pretended to be all for America, but they started radicalizing other professors, and then they radicalized students, and then those students went and taught in schools. So now K through 12, what have you got? A bunch of commie crap that's being taught. And I remember my son coming home in high school saying, da 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 da, they had to write about this, and here was the talking points to put in it. And I said, none of those talk. Give me that list. I looked at the list. I said, none of these talking points happened. There was no, this has nothing to do with World War I. Nothing.
right.
And he says, Mom, I made him write it according to what we went and found some real history. He was very upset. The teacher says, well, we're just going to have to give him a failing grade. I said, you just go ahead and try. Just try. But I was the only parent doing that, obviously.
The
Um,
Wrath of Angela. Yes.
you, know, you know,
Yes.
but
Right.
the thing is that um, it was happening so much so that uh, remember back, was it last year, the year before, when the FBI began naming parents who showed up at
Right.
school board meetings as domestic terrorists.
Right.
Some were arrested.
Yes.
That's called Marxism.
Right.
That's Marxism.
It's it's
Marxism has always been around, but it was so coordinated now with a lot of money
right.
flowing into it. Soros and the district attorneys around in all these different states, you know, funding all that sort of thing, their campaigns so they get elected. Um, so when you see all that, think of Hillsdale College because I'm saying this to the viewers because I know you know, gentlemen, because they've got a lot of information that will help you know what the history of why this country was established, what it will accomplish, et
Right.
cetera, and so forth. So look up hillsdale.edu, hillsdale.edu, and you'll be able to get a lot of information. Jedwin, last comments here about Philip Haney. What would you what would you like everybody to know about him that you haven't already covered?
Well, he spoke Hebrew and Arabic.
No,
Yes.
Hebrew and Arabic.
Hebrew and Arabic. And
Wow.
when obviously we talked because we were in Israel, we talked about Israel a lot. He said that he quoted Jeremiah 5:21. Hear this, O foolish and senseless people who have eyes but see not, who have ears but hear not. And he quoted that to me when we were out uh, at Golgotha, uh, at the cave where Jesus was entombed. And he looked at me and he said, Jedwin, he says, what do you see? And I'm looking and I said, well, I see the tomb. It's empty. He goes, what do you see? And I started looking around and I looked up above the Golgotha, the skull, and there was a barbed wire fence, and there were two signs on it. And one said that there is no God. It was in Arabic. No, there is no God but Allah. And the other one said Jesus was not resurrected. All right. And I says, whoa. I says, I never saw it. And he says, well, this is Golgotha. He says, but right behind that barbed wire fence is a Muslim cemetery. And uh, he says, but wherever you go in Israel, you cannot walk from one block to another without being overwhelmed by history. And he was right. I mean, I remember uh, in in the temple area in Jerusalem, uh, in the old city, walking past an oak door. I mean, a massive oak door. This door was like at least 9 feet tall and 5 feet wide. And I stopped a second and I looked, and there were carvings in it from Roman soldiers who, back in the day, you had to leave your mark wherever you went. And I just remember rubbing my hands over these etchings, you know, uh, and the year that they were etched, back in the time of Christ. And I just being overwhelmed. But no matter where you go in Israel, uh, the land's been fought over so much. Uh, and the people they're just incredible. I just, Arab and Jew alike. It's, I made friends with Arabs. I mean, we stayed in an Arab village, Abu Ghosh, and
Wasn't Abu Ghosh a prime target of the Hamas when they came in because
uh,
they didn't like those Arabs
yeah,
living peacefully with the Jews?
right. It's, uh,
I vaguely remember hearing something about that.
yeah, it's what you know. People just don't know history. They've never taken time to know history. They're worried about the egg prices at the store down the road or whatever.
Yeah,
But if they,
history begins when they
yeah,
become aware that they're alive.
yeah,
That didn't exist before that.
right. The but Abu Ghosh in the War of Independence, 48, uh, the elders, the Makva. I met the Makva of Abu Ghosh, and we over coffee, and he wanted to know what I was doing here in his village. And I said, well, I'm working on a book. And he says, just interviewing Christians? And I said, no, interviewing Jews, Muslims. If a Muslim will talk to me, I'll talk to him. I I told him what I've. Yeah, no, I won't go into that. But anyway, I said, what about this village? I heard that this is the only village in Israel, Muslim village, that uh, sided with the Israelis in the 48 war. He goes, yeah. He says, uh, he says, we have a different form. Every village has a makfa. I said, what's that? And he goes, did you ever see the movie Godfather? I said, oh yeah. And he says, well, we run the village and we vote. And we voted that, you know, we weren't going to side with the Egyptians and the Jordanians and the Syrians and the Lebanese who were attacking Israel. Uh, he says we're staying neutral, and he says it's not our war. We have no problems here. It's not our war. But anyway, it was an it was an interesting conversation with him. But
Yeah,
and I
the
learned.
book is really good. Um,
Yeah.
we could talk for 2 hours on that book, and
Right.
we are bumping up against our little clock here. So I suggest to people they get it because they're going to learn. You know, it's funny the things that you have in that book that I'm not saying uh, Trump read the book. I know he didn't, or he may have for all I know.
Uh,
But he began using phrases like "slay to pay," "pay to slay," that
Right.
you had already been having in your book, and people were going, "They don't have that." Yes, they do. So
Yes.
Jedwin was up front with all of that from the get
Right.
go. So,
Right.
um, so I appreciate very much you being available for the my very. This is my very first official podcast with my new setup. Ah, and being able to have my screens and everything like that and share screens. I
I'm
feel
honored.
like I feel like a real woman now.
uh,
but I'm looking forward to seeing you some more. Which we do talk a lot and that sort of thing. But
right.
tell your wife I said hello, June.
I
Tell
will.
her hello, and we'll do this again. And maybe we can try to do something on about a monthly basis and bring up other topics and let you opine upon them also. And we'll see how it goes.
That'd be
So
great. I appreciate
okay,
it. Thanks
great.
for having me on.
Oh, you're welcome, and we'll see you later.
All right. Bye.
Okay, bye bye.
Bye.
Well, y'all, that's the end of the Constrained View, my very first official podcast with, graphics and stuff like that. Although I've got to figure out why my book didn't show up. The title, I don't think that it's not supposed to be how it's going to be. I'll figure it out. We'll get better from then on. But goodbye, y'all. We'll see you later.